Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to get started in just a minute. I'm still seeing plenty of people coming into the webinar at this moment, so we'll just give it one more minute, and then we'll get started. Thanks for joining us. All right, I think we'll get started. Hi, everyone. I'm John Marr from McDougall Interactive, and welcome to today's webinar. It's the first in our series called How to Develop an Effective Law Firm Content Marketing and SEO Action Plan for 2021. Our first part today will be focused on content marketing and features John McDougall of McDougall Interactive and Jennifer Schaller of the National Law Review. A few of you might have watched John's presentation with Mass Lawyers Weekly in January of this year, and if so, much of this presentation will look familiar, but John has updated the information, and he'll also be talking about a new Google ranking factor coming soon in 2021 called Page Experience. So stick around, you don't want to miss that. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You should see the GoToWebinar control panel on your desktop in the upper right corner. You may need to click the orange arrow button to expand it. You're listening in using your computer's speaker system by default, but if you'd prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You'll have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. And you can send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will have time for a couple of questions in the middle of the presentation, and then we'll also address questions during the Q&A session at the end. So now I'd like to introduce Jennifer Schaller of the National Law Review. Jennifer.
Hello, thanks so much today. This, as John may have mentioned, this is the first of a three-part series that we're going to be doing. We'll have another part in December and a third part in January. But a little bit about me, I do not have nearly as colorful of a background as John does, as you'll soon find out, but I do have extensive experience in professional service marketing, web design, and legal media. I was involved in one of the earliest build-outs of a website for Aon Corporation, which is one of the world's largest insurance brokers back in the mid-90s. Additionally, at Aon, I worked in corporate risk management, where a great deal of what we did is we decided what law firms or lawyers to retain every day. So I know a little bit about the hiring process. I also worked in the corporate legal department of CNA Surety and Western Surety, where I also, again, made decisions on which law firms and attorneys to retain. And one thing that I learned there very much is that corporate attorneys are involved in every functional area of the company, meaning we're involved with reviewing financial reporting documents, helping marketing folks, helping the IP department, looking at websites from a compliance standpoint, and I'll build on that a little bit later in my presentation. Additionally, when I was at CNA, I banded together with a group of other corporate counsel at organizations including Boeing, Zurich, United Airlines, Aon, CNA, and what we did is we developed a database that of legal news content that we were finding from law firm newsletters, from state bar associations. We classified things by type of law and jurisdiction. We developed this database, and we started getting approached by law firms who wanted to have their content in front of that type of an audience. And so what we did is we decided to partner with an established publisher, that's the National Law Review, which had been around since 1888. And we launched as a legal news service. And by partnering with an established organization, it made a quick entree into legal content syndicators like Google News, Apple News, Bloomberg, and Reuters, and we proceeded on as a daily news service. And today, the National Law Review is one of the highest volume business law websites in the US. We surpassed the traffic volume of all 14 sites of law.com or ALM in monthly traffic. And we average around 2 million readers a month. So the bottom line is I know why corporations hire law firms or attorneys. I know how to build and really SEO websites. And I also know how to produce and manage a lot of law firm or legal news content and know what type of legal articles work and which ones don't. So thank you. And I'd like to pass it off to John.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. And before I get started, I'd like to share a few semi-embarrassing photos, so hopefully we can get to know each other a bit, even though we're not together in person during this really unique year for everyone. And this is me playing sitar after getting back from India as a semester in college. And I didn't even know it at the time, but that trip was going to help me later when thinking on a more global scale and building some team members around the world. I should have brought my sitar to play a little. Here's me at Google. Here's me at Google headquarters. One of the 4 times they flew us out there on a conference bike where people can lose weight and study neural networks at the same time. And this is me from when I spoke at Harvard and tried to get the most interesting man in the world to read my first book on digital marketing. And here's my father's ad agency website from 1996, complete with animated GIF of a fish, ahead of its time. And you may have been hearing about Google's latest algorithms and artificial intelligence. It's in the news a ton. And maybe it seems complicated and overwhelming, so I wanted to share a bit of the background information on Google's recipes, if you will. So back in the mid-90s, I was optimizing websites, and we focused on keywords and search engines like AOL, AltaVista, Lycos, and I had a very geeky program called Web Position Gold that prompted you to make a different version for each page that supposedly helped you address the specific keyword density and preferences of each search engine. But racing to outdo each other with keyword placement was unsustainable, and in 1997, Google filed a patent called PageRank, which changed everything for search engines. Google PageRank looks at how other websites link to you and gives you more credit if higher authority sites point from theirs to yours. And ever since then, Google has been continually refining their algorithms to weed out people trying to trick their way to the top of the results. In 2011, Google Panda started to understand more clearly if a website had high quality content and not just lots of pages for the sake of adding content for the search engines. And in 2012, Google Penguin almost disproportionately punished websites that had low quality links pointing at them. And in 2013, they rebuilt the entire engine of their system and called it Hummingbird. This precise and fast platform helps to understand longer phrases, especially important as people started to search more using their voice. And in 2015, RankBrain was developed using machine learning to understand even more complicated and first seen long tail searches. So things that nobody had ever searched for before, and they're typing in really long things. And so they needed an algorithm to really sort that out. And in 2019, BERT was developed using natural language processing to hone in on the very precise user intent of the searcher, even if they're searching with their voice or long, complicated phrases. And in May of 2020, Google announced an upcoming page experience update that represents a significant shift in SEO. Google doesn't usually reveal that much about their algorithm updates, but here they're giving us an exact action plan to follow. So that's pretty unusual. You know, you don't see a lot of that. We did see it with Google with SSL. They kind of let us know when that was happening, that was going to be a factor, and mobile get-in, as it was called. You know, you had to have a mobile-friendly site. Still the case. And so occasionally they show us some things about where they're going, but it's not all that common. So you really want to, perk up and kind of figure out what this new update is about. It may not affect everyone, but if they're telling you this is where things are headed, super important to check it out. And so what is the Google Page Experience Update? According to Google, it's a new signal that combines core web vitals, the stuff on the top left there, with our existing signals for a page experience to provide a holistic picture of the quality of a user experience on a web page. Core web vitals relate to load time and visual page stability, and the existing signals for page experience are mobile friendliness, safe browsing, HTTPS security, and intrusive interstitial guidelines. Intrusive interstitials are essentially annoying pop-ups, things like that. Like when you search the web, and I don't know if you have the same feeling, but sometimes it's just annoying how the pages load and they jump around on you, and you're just trying to start scrolling down and read. Sometimes news sites in particular, I just want to start scrolling down and reading, and it's bang, an ad, another ad, the page kind of shifts around, pop-ups happen. So I think Google's able to kind of force some people's hands and kind of help streamline things. So anyway, they say, combined, that gives us 7 search signals that together make up Google's new understanding of page experience, and it's set to launch in May of 2021. Well, you can't necessarily optimize directly for all of these recent algorithms or systems. Some are just kind of in the background. You can put your best foot forward with high quality content and using the roadmap I'm about to share today with the rest of this 3-part webinar series. Now, you're probably wondering why I go to such great extents to reverse engineer algorithms and chase down best practices that change like the wind. But Conductor, a leading search engine optimization software company, did a study of 310 million visits, which showed that 64% of traffic to websites comes from organic search, while only 2% from social media and 6% from paid search ads. BrightEdge did another study analyzing billions of pieces of content and found something similar. They say that 51% of traffic to websites comes from organic search, 5% from social media, and 10% from paid search. So you might be thinking that SEO is king and you don't need to do other things like social media. The reality is that you want all of your digital marketing tactics to work seamlessly together because they are more powerful when combined. And if you look at what it costs in the legal marketing space to buy clicks in Google, it's almost hard to believe. There are clicks that are over $1,000 each. Sure, the personal injury lawyer stuff like auto accidents and mesothelioma, asbestos injury stuff are among the highest. But across the legal spectrum, click costs are so high that you might not be able to afford them unless your website is highly conversion rate optimized. So you're going to need a system, a roadmap, or a blueprint that you can follow with conviction, because it's going to get bumpy along the way and you'll be tempted to give up. And giving up too soon before you reach the top 5 or 10 in Google with volumes of content is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Kind of like running training to run a marathon and being the first to the finish line, but suddenly stopping at Dunkin' Donuts while everyone just runs joyfully by you. FindLaw is one example of a website that's reaping the rewards of massive search rankings. They have 2.7 million keyword rankings in Google that if they had to buy as Google ads, it would cost over $30 million every single month. And that's up 400,000 keywords from last January when we did the last webinar, kind of launching our book, Content Marketing and SEO for Law Firms. And that's up $3.9 million per month in traffic value. So, you know, as I do different talks over the years and I track some of these kind of things, it's amazing to see how, you know, not everyone, but a lot of sites that are really pumping out lots of content, like a National Law Review, you know, are just going up and up. And so Mintz law firm, they have 68,000 keywords worth $87,800 a month. And that is up about 17,000 keywords and $500 per month in traffic value. So not a huge amount of increase in traffic value, but you know, the key is if you're always moving up in Google, at least, you know, you feel like Google has you know, a good feel for you. You know, and when you start tanking, there's something that their algorithms not liking. So SEMrush is the tool that we make these charts from, if anyone wants to get on there and check it out. So it's in this context that the barrage of information you'll get today is worth digging into for you and or to pass off to your team. And the 2021 SEO search engine optimization landscape has the following 7 components: content, of course, user signals, user experience, but now including the new page experience factors that's, you know, again, coming out in May, where Google is explicitly stating, you know, we're going to be looking at these factors and you need to optimize for them. Technical SEO and the new core web vitals factors, social media marketing, link building, and brand building. So those are 7 components that are, you know, really make up modern SEO. You know, again, in the old days, you could do real minor adjustments to keywords and you would take off. But now even brand building, you know, you have to kind of build your authority. So all of these, by the way, will make your website better, make paid ads go farther, and protect referrals. So if you think, well, you know, is this stuff that important? Well, if people are going to come to your site from a referral and you're doing great stuff like blogging and thought leadership, and that helps your SEO, the people that come from referrals are going to like you better too. So it really all kind of weaves together, and you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone by making it seamless. And so in this series, we'll look at part of a 9-step action plan to be consistently successful with content marketing and SEO. And for today, we're going to really focus on the content part of that. But at number 1 of the complete 9-part series, you know, the rest of the 9 will be in the second webinar in December, and then podcasting and video is going to come in January as a different set of things to check out. But anyway, at number 1 for both content and SEO, you'll need to set up ROI and campaign tracking, and you should look at metrics like the number of leads, from what sources you get visitors, search versus social versus direct traffic, your bounce rate when people visit only one page and then leave, your ranking positions in Google, like we've been looking at the SEMrush charts, errors such as from broken links or pages, and you can use tools like Google Analytics, SEMrush, Advanced Web Ranking, Market Muse is a cool kind of newer artificial intelligence driven content tool that looks at topics, things like that, and Ahrefs, which is historically I've used it as a link building tool to look at high quality links and things like that, but now they're becoming more of a Swiss Army knife as well, and pretty amazing. And just make sure that your metrics tie back to your bigger picture goals, or you won't keep getting budget for this type of stuff. And if you want to make a marketing plan, which far few firms and companies do, check out our free marketing plan templates at legalmarketingreview.com/downloads. And the PowerPoint slides are on that as well. I think, John, you put those up already today?
Yes, I did.
Awesome. So yeah, you can already, you know, even follow along with the slides or, you know, have those for later. And so at number 2, create deep content. The top 10 results in Google have on average 1,633 words on desktop and 1,222 words on mobile. It's just a little bit less than that for the top 20 results. And while you may not want all of your practice area pages incredibly long, it certainly is worth experimenting making those pages and not only blog posts or resource pages well over 1,000 words. So it's going to really depend on what's up there in Google and ranking, but you know, that's sort of the mind frame to think in. And not only do you want to create deep content, but you want to have a variety of content styles. And I'll go through each of these in a little bit individually, so I'm not going to read the list, and we'll come back to it later. I think we're going to do a poll. John, do you want to run a quick poll?
Sure. So we were hoping that everybody could chime in on this. The question is, what types of content does your law firm plan on creating this year? You select multiple ones there if you're going to create multiple ones of these. So enhanced practice group pages or practice area pages, blog posts, podcasts, video, and ebooks. Obviously, you saw the list from John. It's a lot longer than that, but you know, these are just some of the top ways that you can add content to your website. So we're collecting some responses now. I'll just give that one more second. You know, and if you're not a law firm, if you're watching this webinar and you're not a law firm, welcome. A lot of this pertains to you as well. And so just instead of practice group pages, it could be services pages, things like that, category level pages. So John, it looks like 78% of people are going to be adding blog posts. So that's the #1 response, followed just slightly less by the practice group pages, 76%. 50% of people will be doing, or 51% now will be doing podcasts, 51% video. And I'll share this now so everybody can see. 50% podcast, 51% video, and 17% ebooks. So yeah, so it looks like a lot of people are going to be creating some podcasts. I'm surprised not to see video a lot higher than podcasts. Podcasts are becoming
that
much
was
more
a
popular
takeaway
now.
for me too when I heard 50 and 51%. They're neck and neck, and we're seeing a lot of people. We got asked to do proposals for multiple people looking to start podcasts just in the last couple months. Just one huge financial firm found us somehow, and they're looking to start a whole podcast network and looking to put quite a bit of dollars out there in a very short time to own a space. So yeah, I think podcasting, we're seeing it, and I guess you guys are all over it too. That's good. Ebooks, interestingly, pretty low on the list. A benefit, just to give ebooks a little shout out. I talk about a little more later in the talk, but ebooks can be a bribe to subscribe to your email newsletter. So a checklist on a certain type of law or something, or filing a patent or something like that. A checklist, even a quick ebook, can be great. But yeah, that's interesting. Any other takeaways, John, or that about it?
No, that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for joining in, everyone. I'm gonna click back on the screen here to connect. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go through each of the content types that we're talking about today. There's 13 different types of content that are some of the more common things we do in our agency with content marketing and SEO. And so here's an example of an auto accident practice area page that has an introductory description, but also bullet lists to make it a little more skin friendly, and subtopics that will be eventually turned into other pages. You really want your content to be able to kind of scroll up and down and people can skim it. Then you can put content that is focused on the user's needs and not just your own sales pitch, such as what to do when you're in an auto accident, with a link to an operator report, things like that. Adding in things like statistics for the topic can be helpful as well. And even better if you blend in some nice imagery too. So making little either full-blown infographics or little graphics like this. You can put infographics right into your practice area pages. They're long typically and kind of scroll down, but I've certainly seen quite a bit of law firm pages that rank really well have things like an infographic right in a practice area page, video, even podcast player, and kind of mixed in infographics, all kinds of things kind of mixed into the page, make it really deep and informative page. And Google does tend to like that, as long as you make a good flow of the page, people can still enjoy the page without it being too crazy. But it's good to experiment with that. Infographics tend to be long and scrolling, but they contain helpful information or data boiled down to make it easy to grasp. And these can attract other websites to link to you too. That's a common link building tactic, is to, if you've got a whole collection of ebooks, well, ebooks as well, but infographics, ebooks, resources, people are going to link to your website much more likely than if you just have, here's our service pages, practice area pages. So the statistics showing video is booming is undeniable, and video will help increase time on site, but it also really humanizes your firm. YouTube is not only the second largest search engine in the world, but it's now the most popular social network, and it's one of the largest websites on the internet. At minimum, you should be adding one short YouTube video per month for most firms. Certainly there are some that are doing huge YouTube channels and massive volumes, but I think if you add at least something per month, you build a YouTube channel, and make sure that they're search engine optimized. So you can insert them at the top of a blog post, put the transcribed text below it. And one of the people at Google headquarters, one of the times we were flown out there, thought that was a good idea, doing it that way. They like to see people have the transcripts. Some of our law firm clients say, oh, it's just so much text. How are people possibly going to, have to look at all the words of the video under it? Well, on a practice area page, you can put the video without the transcript, but then if you put it on a blog post and under it, you could even make it collapsible, but have the transcript for those that want to read it. But really for ADA compliance, that's critical. I mean, you could even be sued if you don't have it. So it's great for SEO to have the transcript, but it's also for disabled people. Some people really need the words on the page, not just the video if they can't see it, for example. So of course, you can insert video into practice area pages and increase thought leadership and engagement while reducing bounce rates at the same time. And podcasting is also booming, as we just learned with you guys too. And podcast ad dollars are expected to surpass $1 billion by 2021, according to IAB. I just started using Spotify instead of Pandora because they made a bet to take podcasting seriously. And even if you don't aim for creating a popular podcast, you really just can't beat getting your attorneys talking and turning that into Google rankings and stuff to share on social media and insight for potential customers. So, turning that record button on and having a casual conversation, but with a knowledgeable attorney there, is going to really dig up great information for your website, especially for some of the attorneys that aren't going to take the time to write, that maybe you've been bugging them to try and write, but they just not going to do it. Try podcasting. It's a great low-key way to get that awesome stuff out of their head. And Squadcast is a tool that I'm just starting to use that has great promise for making podcasting easier for non-technical people. And you can learn more on the podcasting and video webinar in January. John Marr, who's on today, John's our resident expert for all things podcast and video. And he's going to run most of that webinar, and you'll learn about the tools and mixing boards and what types of mics and things like that, and all the crazy stuff you can get, from very inexpensive to very expensive. There's different ways to do it. Certainly can do it, with just a headset and a $50 mic, and you'll be way ahead of the game compared to just using your laptop's mic or something like that. And then you start to get more advanced. You can use a mixing board, and it starts to get a little complicated, some other devices, or you can just use something like Squadcast, and it just like GoToMeeting or Zoom or whatever, it gives you a link to share with people, and they can hop on with you on a podcast. And then of course you can download it and upload the audio, edit the audio, upload it to your podcast hosting and all that. So anyway, definitely stay tuned for that one in January. We'll go more into the weeds on that. Podcasting is booming. And generally speaking, long text content does the best in organic search, at least traditionally. So blog posts like this 2,858 word article that ranks #1 on tips on how to file a patent are something you want to replicate for your best topics. Just don't forget to come back every now and then and update your posts with some new sentences, which include even more related keywords to keep those pages growing instead of fading. So if this page, launched in December of 2015 is still ranking, there's a good chance that they did some updates to it so that Google sees that it's not dead and that it's relevant, fresh information. So it's just a shame to have, pump out so much content and then just forget about it. So go back to your old content. You can even go into Google Search Console and look at, how things are performing, what the click-through rate is to content, and kind of update things based on that. And if that's not enough, all these tactics and, in the weeds things you need to do to really excel at SEO and content marketing, you should also be writing on other websites that have a larger audience than your own. And here are some of my articles on National Law Review. And links from these authority websites and getting in front of their visitors is critical, even if the links are no follow links and don't pass much Google energy. So it's really not just your own blog and your own SEO that helps your SEO. Other websites pointing at you and even mentioning you, even if they don't link, Google sees your brand, searched on the internet, mentioned on the internet. So all of that helps Google see that your brand is powerful. And having ebooks, as we discussed, will get you much more mileage out of the content you're working so hard to create. And by having content in a downloadable format that requires at least a person's name or an email address, you can generate leads from the 95% of the internet that's not ready to purchase. HubSpot's a big proponent of this idea that so much of people that are surfing the web aren't just buying hats and t-shirts and lawyers, signing up for a free consult with an attorney. They're researching first. So if you want to be even more strategic, map out a series of ebooks that become chapters of a book that you get published, and that's the ultimate in thought leadership building. So we do some writing of books for attorneys. And often it's, the content we're blogging and writing for attorneys, or that they're writing and we're optimizing, we can turn into ebooks that can be downloaded. And if they're longer, they can, even an ebook can be printed as a book, and you'd be amazed. I'm sure you've all gotten a book that you thought, well, that's kind of short, but wow, it's a nice, cool little book. Maybe I'll read this in the doctor's office or something. So kind of a gift book, short books. But if you're putting all that work into blogging and website content, it is a fair amount of work. I don't want to say, getting it up on Amazon and dealing with all those rigmaroles and making a version that's a reflowable ebook for Kindle, and there's other steps to it. But the benefit of being a thought leader and the author of a book is huge. So if you're going to all this effort, it's great if you can repurpose at the very least into an ebook and capture people's email addresses as leads. So press releases are another way to announce what your firm is up to. Business Wire, Market Wired, and PR Newswire, those are some of the larger, more reputable submission sites. Way back, 15 years ago, we used to kind of just pump out a bunch of press releases it's kind of an SEO thing. You don't want to do it that way anymore. Really, there is an SEO benefit, but they need to be real news and worthy of submission. And considering you're on a webinar right now, I don't probably have to go far to convince you that there's a value in thought leadership building through it. GoToWebinars are our preferred tool for this, and it always helps to do them with a partner. So you can get in front of their audience and their social media, etc. And you can write FAQ type of content and get yourself ranked into position 0, so above the top 10 results. The little answer boxes that you often see are now more frequently at the top of search results, and are usually what get read when you voice search and with Google Home or Amazon Alexa devices. And topic clusters are fairly new concept when you create a very long pillar page, well over 1,000 words, if not thousands of words. I work with a leading digital marketer, a peer of mine, and they recently did over 10,000 words, one of their pillar pages for a client. And so those are covering topics and subtopics briefly in a general way. That's what the pillar page is, sort of the general synopsis of everything in this concept. maybe, patent law or something like that, and you cover the top 12 big buckets of things with a little paragraph on each of them. Then you link to the mothership page, from that mothership page to the cluster content, such as shorter blog posts. And the shorter cluster content also has to link back to the main pillar page, the general page, to properly form the topic cluster. And we're finding these very effective when building topical authority in Google. So rather than just cramming, intellectual property lawyer, Houston, Texas, or whatever, all over your page, Google really wants to see that you have clusters of useful information about that topic, not just a service page. And certainly variety is good of different type of cluster content, from blog posts to resource pages, FAQs, podcast videos, etc. And here's a look at the most linked to web pages of FindLaw. Using a tool like Ahrefs, you can see what pages are most frequently linked to in order to get ideas on building your own link-worthy content. This is essential if you want to satisfy that part of the Google algorithm without resorting to spamming tactics like getting listed in ridiculous directories, which is a long dead tactic. So, people are more likely to link to you if you have super high value content. And if you just simply go to Ahrefs or SEMrush and sort by the top pages on a website that's a competitor of yours, or like a FindLaw or National Law Review, you can see what's really important. I know National Law Review, Jennifer maybe later can talk about it, but I think amendments, probably some pretty hot content. So kind of look at the top pages reports and figure out ways to, make similar content. And lastly, in the list of these 13 common types of content we create, case studies are a great way to highlight your actual experience and build search engine friendly content and things to share on social media at the same time. Nothing better than highlighting your actual customer stories. If you can get written approval, that can be a great thing to do. And after you create all of this content, you got to make sure to create a resource or insight center, like this example from Mintz. They even went so far as letting you sort by topic, type, or date. And it's really important to look beyond individual pages and think about volumes of content. So this spreadsheet from, we ran this last January, shows a few competitor sites and how many pages they have indexed in Google, the number of referring domains in addition to those number of pages, and the number of organic keywords driving traffic, the traffic value, and the page speed. So not surprising that Mintz, who has the most pages, links, and the fastest site, also had the most ranking keywords and value of those keywords if you had to buy them as Google pay-per-click ads. This diagram visually shows the total share of voice and search for each site, and you can get that from a number of tools, but this one's from SEMrush. It's called the keyword gap tool, and you can put in your site and 4 competitors, and you can spit out all of the keywords that the competitors are ranking for, compare it to yours, show only which ones you that are unique to you or unique to them or unique to one of them. You can split it up a bunch of different ways. You can turn it into these types of visual diagrams. You can export it as Excel. This awesome to really get insight from that. Let's see. So, and then creating content for specific user intent and or personas is also important. What will resonate with a backpacker versus an intellectual are 2 different things, and Google is getting smart enough to know how well your content is engaging individual people types. You should even look into what types of action steps are on the pages that rank for your best keywords, and consider making your process and how to work with you clearer. In this example, an IP firm is offering not only learn more buttons, but buttons to jump right in and apply for a trademark. If Google thinks that a user wants an action-oriented site and you have great info but less action, you might not rank as well. So use keywords, but know that they're more of a prerequisite that compared to all this other stuff now. And according to search metrics, the importance of individual keywords continues to decline as a result of Google machine learning algorithms. The relevant factors above showed that Google rankings are based on the holistic optimization of text at a topic level, meaning the keyword itself is now of secondary importance. So SEO isn't just jam your keywords on a page. That's kind of real old thinking. And so keywords still go in the title tag, the meta descriptions, headings, H1 tags, etc., body text, alt tags, and URLs. And the top 10 results have 7.5 instances of the keyword on average. That means that while you might be tempted to barely use keywords hearing this kind of stuff, it still most often is the case that a decent amount of keyword usage will help the page to rank. So Google can look beyond it, but that doesn't mean you don't want to, help them out. Now relevant content can rank without exact keywords, and topical authority trumps keywords, but again, it still helps within reason to use them. This graphic shows the topic explorer by search metrics, and the idea here is to find all of the related keyword to the main phrase you are targeting and cover the topic more completely. So if you're trying to rank for avocado recipes, you'll need to add these keywords and or have supporting pages using these keywords rather than just cram your main phrase on a single long page. So to summarize the content factors, know that relevance is key. The URLs with the highest content relevance are on positions 3 to 6. According to search metrics, this is because the first and second results are often taken up by a top brand or Wikipedia who are able to break the rules more than a smaller site can. Well over 1,000 words or even more than 1,600 words with highly comprehensive content is working best. But always look at what is appearing in Google results for your keywords to make sure your page or site is the type of content that Google thinks users want. And that sounds almost too obvious or too good to be true, but sometimes it's as simple as you need to just search Google for what you want to come up for, look at what's coming up, especially the top 3 results, top 5 results, what is in those? How long is it? How good is it? What is on the pages? Is there video, podcasts, infographics? What is it? Just a tool? Like if you search for free keyword tool, does Google think you want a big long article, or maybe Google just takes you right to a page with a tool on it? So Google's crazy now with crazy smart, I should say. They can sense what a user wants, and so generally speaking, longer, deeper content's going to help you in SEO. But with that said, look at what's there and really try and mimic and outdo what is in the top results. And about half of the top 20 ranking URLs are now using keywords in their title, whereas in the old days, title tags had a massive influence on search rankings. And this clearly demonstrates that Google evaluates content according to its relevance and not just by the individual use of keywords. And Orbit Media did a survey of 1,000 bloggers a little ways back, but it's still really relevant. And here's what they found. Using any of the following techniques will put you in the top 5% of all bloggers. Put in the time. Just 5.5% of bloggers spend 6+ hours on a typical post. Go deep. Only 4.9% of bloggers write 1,500 words per post on average. And flood the zone if you can sustain it. Only 4.7% of bloggers publish daily, but better to write one great blog post per month than lots of weaker ones. So if you can sustain lots of good high quality content, then do it. But if not, just shoot for less content that's good. And build a team and a process for perfection. Jennifer's going to talk more about that type of thing shortly. And just 2.8% of bloggers use more than one editor in their process. Add audio, only 2.6% of bloggers are producing audio content. Promote with social, SEO, and email. And here's a list that you can come back to later that shows the ideal length for various types of content. And at minimum, note that a title tag should be around 55 characters and meta descriptions, 155 characters max. So in conclusion, for my section of this talk, to succeed in SEO and content marketing, you must be a real authority based on content that has insight, not content to satisfy the search engines, not just content to satisfy the search engines. And if you have true insight inside you, the rest will fall in line with the right help. And here are some of the resources that I mentioned, some of the tools, and legalmarketingreview.com/downloads for the marketing plan template, the slides, and some other things. And let's see, before we go over to Jennifer, we usually take a couple quick questions in between speakers. So John, do we have any questions we can answer before Jennifer speaks?
Yep, Megan was just looking for the book that you referenced earlier, and again, that's just John McDougall's book. It's called Content Marketing and SEO for Law Firms, and in the questions panel of the GoToWebinar control panel, I pasted the link to that book on Amazon, and I also pasted in there the link that John just had up on the screen for the slide deck, which is at legalmarketingreview.com/downloads.
And John, the book, of course, is right on legalmarketingreview.com. So if you go to that, to our
Yep.
legal marketing blog, the book is, it's easy to find on the homepage, the
Great.
top.
And in addition to that, let's see, Kathleen was hoping that you could briefly explain what thought leadership is.
So thought leadership and thought leadership marketing is the idea that instead of just advertising, and my father had an ad agency and he was in the Mad Men era, and so I grew up in a family of advertisers, and really a lot of it centered around almost cuteness, if you could call it that, like how creative and slick you could make your ad, your TV commercial, your billboard, your ad in a magazine. We went to such great extents in the 80s and 90s at the agency, and we were very ROI focused and much less. In fact, I think it was the staple of my father's agency was more ROI driven, and not to say boring, but they tried to focus more than some other agencies did on getting the value proposition and the messaging out. But a lot of agencies would almost at the expense of the message make it interesting to look at. The ad would be cool looking, or there'd be a real theme between all of the different ads that would come out. Say if there were a campaign of every month in a magazine for a year, maybe there were half a dozen ads, every other month they swap out the ad or something like that. They'd want to make it cute and themed well and all go together. But sometimes, you go drive by a billboard and it's like, oh, that was funny, but you have no idea who it was, or what you're supposed to do with it. Same with some ads on TV, that's why some of them are a little bit boring, but Geico and certain things, the message because they pound it into your head. But thought leadership marketing is sort of the opposite of that. It's like, let's not just reach out to people with a cute message. Let's really make it clear that we're authorities on a subject. And the reason I think we took such an interest in that is because doing SEO from 1995, 1996, like early on SEO, we're always building websites for people and trying to get them to put more content on their site. And for at least a decade, the first decade of public internet, people barely, it's enough to convince them to do a website, much less say, hey, we got to write a blog a day or something. Nobody wanted to hear even adding content at first. But as the search engines got more evolved, it's almost impossible now to rank if you're not a thought leader. So, if you get a referral, as I mentioned earlier, and someone comes to your website, and on the homepage of your website, you wrote the book on trademarks or some niche, word marks or something like that. Maybe you're the authority on that subject. You're going to have a couple different benefits. The referrals are going to go further, and there are very specific things that Google looks at now that make it so that your SEO is going to go way up. So in a nutshell, you have to pick a topic and probably narrow that topic, so that you're not just an intellectual property lawyer, but you're the word mark girl or guy or whatever, that you're known for some flavor of that, some subdivision or niche within that niche, and then you become known for that, and you're seen as a thought leader. It's kind of a word some people don't love, but you can replace the word thought leader with expert, authority, etc. So
Great.
that's about it. Yep.
Yeah, and then just really briefly, because I know we want to get to
Yep.
Jennifer, Nancy asked or said that I've recently seen multiple times a stat saying that in the next few years, 80% of search traffic will go to videos. What's that all about?
Yeah, so I think it's Cisco and people looking at the content going through the pipes of the internet are finding that they're seeing such an increase in video as part of the web that they're able to extrapolate and predict that fairly soon it's most of the internet is video. While that is a stat that I've thrown out there, it's also, I don't know, it's kind of interesting now we're seeing in our poll, right? Like 50% of people are doing podcasts too. So I would just say I can't verify, like Cisco may supposedly be able to, that video is going to be, almost everything, but that stat's a real stat that's all over the web. But with that said, I don't think people are going to stop reading, for example, National Law Review's blog and the articles that are there, and that they're going to be only video in a year from now, But who knows? I mean, that it's a real stat, but keep an eye on it basically. And now podcasts are coming up in stats, so stats change. But people are so often on mobile and they're searching with their voice. So it's sometimes easier standing in a little micro moment, like at a bus stop or in line somewhere, especially now with COVID, you've got a mask on, you're going into Home Depot or something, maybe there's a line, you can watch a little video on how to apply for a patent or something. So I think that's so part of the impetus is that people are using mobile phones a lot, and that's a place where you're probably less likely to read a big long article. So you might get a benefit from a 2-minute video or an 8-minute video or something. So that's the gist of that. And yeah, what do you think, John? Should we switch now, or one more, or should we switch in?
Yeah, we can definitely move on to Jennifer, and we will definitely have more time at the end of the presentation for more questions. So keep them coming in.
Yep. And yeah, thanks for those questions. And let's see, next slide. Oops. Yeah, you got the resources. So, and not to give you a big pitch for our services, but we are offering a free quick competitor analysis. If you want to send us a few of your competitors, even say 4 competitors to your site, we're happy to do these kind of reports. So give you an Excel spreadsheet of all the keywords that your competitors rank for and you rank for, and then sort of this Venn diagram, and give you some ideas. So no charge, just looking to create relationships and connect with you all. So feel free to reach out on that, either email, you can call me or email, and we'll happy to do that. And let's see. So user signals is number 3 in the 9-step, roadmap that we're talking about, but that's where we're going to start in the next webinar. So for the rest of today, Jennifer's going to share how you can organize your editorial calendar and content distribution strategy. And she does massive amounts of content, which is generating 377,000 keyword rankings worth $1.2 million per month if you had to buy those as Google ads. So check it out, and take it away, Jennifer. Oh, can you hear us, Jen? Maybe unmute if...
I may need to do that. Let's
Okay,
see.
sorry guys, just give us a minute. And here's the great thought leaders while we're waiting.
Sorry, Jennifer, you are muted on your end, so just open up that GoToWebinar control panel and unmute.
Hello, can you
Hey, there
hear
you
me
are.
Okay,
all?
awesome. Yep.
Okay, well, these aren't guys who try to keep women down, but I'm in Chicago and it's fall, and our neighbors have decided to do their leaf blowing. So
Ah,
I think they're done, but anyway, you might get a little local color in the background. But first of all, I'm going to be real brief here because first of all, somebody asked about thought leadership, and I'm going to talk quite a bit about that and specifically. Um, Unless you're Gandhi or, the Dalai Lama, which John has some experience with, attorneys write to demonstrate their knowledge, to prove what they know. It's their proof of concept, and it's also an SEO and a branding strategy. So, what should you write on? You should write. It gets a little frustrating at times. I know, attorneys have to bill their time in 6-minute increments, and that gets little frustrating. But what's really the easiest thing to do is first of all, you need to identify your audience, but what questions you have and what questions they have, and what information do you already have. So first of all, we want to talk a little bit about identifying your audience. Okay, well, you can't be everything to everybody. I look at a lot of attorney biographies, not to share my fun hobbies with anyone, but it's a little disingenuous when you see somebody who's been practicing since 1974 and their page reads everything that they've done and they're now an expert in estates and trust and cybersecurity. It's not believable, and that's not going to SEO well. So if you're going to be writing on something, try to find a niche, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that broad. If you're going to report on legal news, just bear in mind the National Law Review alone publishes 65 to 85 pieces of content a day. We're going to always, not to be impolite, pretty much outrank you. In addition, you have Bloomberg and you have all these other organizations. So how do you work within that kind of restraint of reporting on things that would be important to your clients? One of the easiest and most effective ways is to, if you're writing a breaking news story, it's going to be inherently brief because you just got the information. Write a follow-up and link to it. So that's one thing that's also a good SEO technique, is linking. But the other part is, if you want to be an expert in a particular area, meaning either be an expert locally or vertically. And the screen that we have up right now, and as it relates to identifying your audience, this is an article, a 2-part series that was written by a Milwaukee law firm. More than 80% of their traffic, they published it with the National Law Review, came from a link that went from the National Law Review out to specialty retail. So they are like so in their wheelhouse. And when we looked at the readership analytics, it was all coming from Walmart, Safeway, Kohl's, but also geographically. Or Milwaukee, it was coming from Madison, Wisconsin, Green Bay, city of Rockford, which is a town near Milwaukee. So it really did kind of fire on all cylinders, meaning they took something, pop-ups and kiosks, or something related to retail, made it very specific, got into a magazine where they wanted to be, and then pulled in the readership that they were exactly looking for. So one of the biggest things right now, probably retail isn't the best example given our friend COVID here. So we're going to talk a little bit about COVID and use that to demonstrate how to answer what questions clients are asking you, and to combine that with breaking news. So here, let's go to the next slide. What I did is I pulled some of our more recent articles from the last 6 months. Each one of these articles received in excess of 100,000 reads. The top 2 received in excess of 250,000. So these are all questions that your clients are asking you, or questions that people have. Some of them are so verbatim, they're even actually phrased in the form of a question or ask about guidance. And this goes on two levels. Think of the way that you search for content, and also think of what people are looking for that they need answers to. When we develop keywords and or title tags and all that kind of stuff, I'll talk about that in a minute. We work with our team to very much think about what's the snacky nugget that's somebody's going to want to pull out of this article and be searching for. So just to kind of go over what we did with COVID, in both March and April, we received 4.3 million readers each month. And a lot of it was being driven by this COVID traffic. So obviously we've been able to develop quite a bit of information related to this topic. So now you can go to the next slide. So another area, not just what you believe your clients are looking for, is what questions do you have as a group? We have questions like as sitting around, when we first started with the Scalia death on the Supreme Court, we had questions about, well, how is this mechanically going to work? How long is it going to take? Things like that internally. And we weren't seeing content coming in from the contributed content that comes in from our law firms. So what we decided to do were some interviews. And a lot of people get completely freaked out when they do interviews. And I think it's because, and no offense, PR people, but you make it way too complicated. All you really need to do is draft a list of questions and kind of go back and forth with people. And if need be, via email, do a follow-up via voice, but it can go really quick. And as you're writing the questions, you're actually writing your article, and they're writing the article for you when they write back the responses. So with the Scalia situation, we wanted to know the mechanics, and we interviewed some Supreme Court practitioners, which is a really good and small group of people, and also extremely well regarded in the industry. So that did a couple different things. It helped credentialize our site itself because we had really important people on there. Those folks in their law firms were linking back to us and promoting the articles. And as I mentioned, if we had questions on it, so were media and other people. So we got a ton of media links to this article, because when media are writing, they want to have factual things to link back to. So we had, a group of people who practiced before the Supreme Court, and then media were citing our article to cite them. And then once they got cited on our by other media, the law firms from where they were working linked to us again. So it kind of became this wonderful little example of how we can bring in experts. It's not a lot of work. A lot of attorneys are afraid sometimes to include other attorneys, but again, going back to the situation, these are the limited people who regularly practice before the Supreme Court. I don't think everybody expects you to be an expert on everything, and they're good people to know and have a rapport with. So it really worked well, multiple backlinks, and a lot of social media came out of it. Another example was the Trump impeachment. Again, we had mechanical questions and what was going to work and what wasn't going to work. And we interviewed both Democratic and Republican who were involved with the Clinton impeachment. We have a member of Ken Starr's team, and then we had a member of the Clinton defense team. And, again, they're perceived as experts. And it had this lovely cycle of the firm linking to us, which again, in semantic SEO, links coming from properties or organizations that are also in the law are some of the best links you can have. It's kind of a big vote of confidence, that in addition to the media links. So it worked out really well. Also, too, if you have transcripts related to this, you can kind of link them together and make them into an article series, which is what we did with both of these. And a couple other things, and just briefly wanted to mention here is journalists, this is a way to kind of make an inroads with them. You can't just go to them and just throw up your press releases at them. It's very annoying. But a way to develop rapport is to give them information that they need, like in these situations, and then also do things like prime the pump a bit by following them on social media, and then also maybe letting them know about this type of article if it's somebody that you know that writes on this type of thing. For instance, like the Wall Street Journal has a bankruptcy blog. If you're writing on that, try to possibly develop a genuine rapport with the folks who write on that column. So another way to use content that you already have is to use the legal analysis section of briefs or papers that you're writing, opinion letters that you're writing for clients. You obviously don't use the client's information or their name, but if they have the client or if they have the question, other people are as well. So you take some of the research and you kind of repurpose it and reconfigure it, and you make it into a product that's usable for public consumption, but the heavy lifting is already done. So I want to talk now about like a little bit of what about the term we call snacky nuggets, and that would be on my next slide. And this is what we kind of drill into the head of the editors and editing teams that work on our website, is what makes thought leadership pop. And it kind of goes back to that cluster map that John had earlier with the avocados. If you can go to the next slide, John. So I'm lazy. All I did was hear just these words on the side are some of the top ranking terms that brought traffic into our website. And you can kind of look at the similarities there. The blue ones are just all variations on the Payroll Protection Act. They have lots of similar language, but it's tweaked a little bit. So when you write, you want to write you know, in your meta title, meta description, alt text, that kind of stuff, and on your social media, you want to use variations of this terminology, but not just the same terminology over and over again. And the yellow, same thing. You can see not only is it state specific, but you know, you have California shelter law, shelter in place date, you know, Michigan shelter in place, stay at home law. So again, it's a variation on similar type of language, and some folks, the traditional SEO word for this is a long tail keyword, and what it is in semantic SEO or developing a culture of being known for something, it's the phrases that you want associated with your name and your law firm, and the more different places that you have them being on your own owned properties, meaning on your website, your own blogs, your Wikipedia page, your social media that you put out there, the similar language, it's going to kind of tie all together as a little web. Additionally, it also works when people quote you, because if you're putting that type of language out there, then you have other organizations linking and quoting you using that type of language. You're not only training search engines what you want to be known for, but you're also training other people who are linking with you. So just to kind of go through a few things where we use these snacky chunks, as we like to call them, or long tail keywords, or places like a title tag, meta description, your subheadings. It's real important, kind of hygienic thing in technical SEO to make sure that you have high subheadings designated. So when you're formatting your content, use alternate descriptions when you use photos, and try to stick a stock photo with everything. We always do. And again, in your URL, as John had mentioned before, other examples of this would be like switching out the terminology of whistleblower and key tam, or lawyer and attorney. You just want to kind of keep using this similar language, but use it in different places. So the next slide here is one of the most frustrating things if you're trying to learn SEO is that it always tends to be in most of your reputable places geared towards retail. But this is one real good example that I think applies to what John and I are trying to talk about today. You're never going to be #1 for law, like in this example they use shoes, but Nike women's running shoes, not only does it have a better conversion rate, it's more the neighborhood that is you want to be found in and that you want to have associated with your name. So it works in a couple different ways. It's just, being consistent in how you use terminology on your own websites and your own and related areas that you may be. So let's just go one more slide here. So when we get content in at the National Law Review, one thing, we're a news service. We syndicate out through Google News, MSN, Yahoo, Bloomberg, and all those other places. We have to be quick. So some of our madness and what we do is we publish as soon as possible as we're trying to catch the news cycle. We have a two-step process. We work in teams. We need to specifically tag keywords and type of law for the news services, and that's another way to kind of help direct the content. And as soon as we publish something, it goes directly to the news services. We put the content then on our homepage to help further SEO it. And then within 24 hours, we try to put it out on Twitter twice and with different URLs, and then a specialty Twitter sub account related to the type of law. And then places like Facebook and LinkedIn. And some of the ways that we make that magic happen is a lot of technology, like using Hootsuite and Deliver It. So let's kind of wrap this up. Some of the things that you can do, internal linking and repurposing content, use what you have, third-party syndication, that's what we do. Being consistent and regular in posting, it's a little bit like having a gym membership. If you go once, that's great, but the more often you go, the better results you're going to get. And as John had mentioned before, you want a mix of evergreen and newsy content. Evergreen content that you want update from time to time. We have an example of an article that's written about what information you should give your going college student, what financial information they should have available. That gets linked to by Clark Howard every fall, and we get, I mean, the article's old. It's like 5 years old, but we get thousands and thousands of links on it each year. So you want to have that kind of article. And then you want to have the newsier stuff that's going to be bringing people in and answering upcoming questions based on the news that they have. So I think that's going to be it for me because I don't want to go on too long here.
Oh, but that's fantastic, Jennifer. Thank you for that. And, I think the key is that, National Law Review is an example of a massive website, right? So not everybody's going to be able to copy all those things that you do, but it gives you hopefully a view into the world of someone producing just huge amounts of content. And how can you replicate that in your own editorial calendar, even if that's just once a month on your blog or once a week or twice a week, whatever it is. Again, do you have some strategic forethought to say, we're going to have a mix of news content, evergreen content, podcasts, videos, ebooks, kind of just really bring it all together, in spreadsheets, and then with a process, of getting it on social media and all that. So hopefully you can make your own process, and we're happy to, answer more questions now. We do have, as mentioned, the free competitive analysis, and the next webinar is December 9th, and there's the URL to it. And so that's just a reminder of those things, and we definitely hope to see you on the next webinars. But why don't we now take some questions?
Yeah, sounds good, John. Thanks. I can actually definitely, everybody, if you have more questions, put them into the questions panel on the GoToWebinar control panel, and we're happy to take some more questions now. I can actually answer the first couple here. Lillian was wondering what the difference is between a podcast and video. So in general, podcasts are audio only, and then video, of course, is video with motion. Although that is getting a little bit blurred these days, because a lot of people who are doing podcasts are now recording them while they're recording the podcast. They're videotaping that and even live streaming those podcasts onto YouTube or Facebook and live streaming, and then ultimately that video will live on on YouTube. So that line between the podcast and the videos is getting blurred, because you can go to YouTube and watch people as they're recording their podcasts. But in general, podcasts are audio and videos video. And then related to that, Gloria was wondering if you can repurpose a video into a podcast. Are there any downsides to that? And I would say, like what I just said, you see a lot of it going the other direction, where somebody has a podcast and then they're repurposing that into a video by just videotaping themselves as they're recording the podcast. So that way is certainly possible. You could take a video and export just the audio portion of that video and then put it up on your website as audio only. Put it on SoundCloud or Libsyn, or there's other podcast audio hosting companies. So you could technically take just the audio from a video and put it up as a podcast, but you'd probably want to really have an introduction, welcome people kind of to the show, some things like that to make it more appropriate for people who are just listening to it in audio only format. So I wouldn't generally think that you would take, also videos tend to be shorter and podcasts tend to be longer. We do videos 2 or 3 or 5 minutes or something like that, and whereas podcasts can sometimes be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or even longer. So that's that. Tejas was wondering, John, for backlinks, what off-page SEO strategy should they use for getting backlinks? Any thoughts on that?
Backlink strategies have changed over the years dramatically. I'll talk first about what not to do. Don't go buy backlinks pretty much in any shape or form.
Don't harass people to insert backlinks into other people's articles. We probably receive 5 or so requests like that a day to have somebody insert into a Mince Levin article or something like that, something for their e-cigarette. Don't do that.
I mean, on the other hand, if there's something extremely relevant, one tactic is broken link building. So if you're going to ask someone to insert something, maybe you can actually do the hard work to say, hey, you have an article on, I'll go back to how to file a patent or something like that. And I see that you link to a resource, but that page is broken. So you can use tools to find broken links on important pages on the web. And then if you tell them you already have a broken link, you need to change it anyway, or you should for your readers, you might consider linking to our similar, new and improved, better version of what used to be on the internet. And what you can do is go to the Wayback Machine. If you search Google for Wayback Machine, you'll see on archive.org that there's this tool where you can look at websites, like almost every website in ever existence, and every page. Not everything, but it's pretty crazy how much is there. And you can go and find the URL that they're linking to that's down and broken and no longer exists, and see the content. And then you make your own better version of that. And then you say, hey, you're already linking to something, your link is broken. Would you mind, you might like, your readers might like to link to us. So rather than spam someone like Jennifer and just have contextually irrelevant suggestions, there is a way to actually to do that, or use tools for SEMrush has one of when your brand is mentioned, so cited.
Yes, that's a great idea.
Yeah, there's another one. I think it's called brand mentions. I keep getting sort of spammed by them, but it seems like a good tool. I might check it out. But again, I know SEMrush already has it. So if National Law Review is mentioned on these 32 sites that don't link to you, you go and just occasionally pop in and say, hey, you might like to, when you're mentioning us, also underline, I see you mentioned us in the context of, constitutional amendments or something. And by the way, we have some awesome pages on that. You might like to link to them. So if you do outreach, it's a good thing, but do it with some homework done in advance. The other way to get links is just to, make content that is far and above the typical blog post. So, we did one for not a non-law firm client. It was a restaurant years ago, 100 fun facts about lobsters. And we ranked, I think it was like #2 in Google for the single word lobsters. They might even still rank. I have some lobster traps. I like to go fishing and clamming and catching lobsters and things. And so I actually did some of the writing myself, and then one of our writers finished it up, and Huffington Post linked to it, and a lot of people were really curious about it. They do sell lobsters at the restaurant, but sometimes, like, you could write something that's not exactly what you sell, like something about Abraham Lincoln, who was a lawyer, and some sort of history. If it fits your site, you can sometimes think more broadly and write interesting content that's not your typical content, that is either longer or like, you know, um, I mean, for Red Bull, it could be funny, right? Like, so, but for lawyers, you're not always going to want to have hysterical stuff, right? But it could be deeper, longer information. It could be visual, 100 funny or 100 unique X, and you have 100 pictures that illustrate, the Constitution or something like that. So, not appropriate for every site, but it's a common tactic in more general SEO, not just legal SEO, but across, you know, again, obviously, if you're a food product or something, you're more than happy to kind of go on the funny side or things like that. But that, again, you can apply that in the legal space. You just probably more on the lines of historical or unique or deep informative information, but again, far beyond the typical blog post. And you can use a tool like BuzzSumo. BuzzSumo will, you put in constitutional amendments as a phrase into the BuzzSumo search engine, and it will tell you the top most shared pieces of content on the internet about that topic. And then you can say, oh, wow, someone actually did a really cool 97 things to know about constitutional amendments that I never would have thought. You could make it so interesting. And so you can get ideas from that and do your own versions of it. And then you can actually download the people that shared it on social media and ask them for social shares, which then sometimes people link to you as well when you get a lot of visibility on social media. So anyway.
Yeah, another thing with that too is, first of all, I tell my staff to be flattered that so many people want to link to us because they work so hard to get such a high authority rank on our page, and that we do offer follow links. So they should be flattered, but it's still annoying when you get that many. But this time of the year, top 10 articles, top 10 issues related to COVID in New Jersey, or, a year in review. This is the stuff that you can kind of put in your editorial calendar that happens every year. This time of the year is the roundup time. And so that's something that you can be thinking of too. And that does get picked up by a lot of like HR organizations or risk managers or group like that, who kind of also are looking for information to recap for the end of the year.
That's awesome. Yeah, and maybe even round up with interview people on your podcast, and those experts are then going to link to you, and their friends are going to link to you. So, John, what else? What do we have for another question?
Yeah, so that answers the question of what is link bait. So that's what you're talking about. There's some sort of
Yep.
article or a page on your site that that would draw people in and make people want to share and link to that page, something interesting. Another question is there a recommended length that a webinar should be if you have a webinar that you give?
Well, we
And what
just
about a
broke the
length on
rule.
a
No.
podcast, a
I mean,
podcast length, a video length?
yeah, I mean, for different lengths of different things, I just saw a webinar the other day. I think it was Larry Kim from WordStream did or is doing one for 4 hours, and I was
Wow.
joking with someone about that earlier. It's just sometimes you want to break the rule, and like right now we're going over our allotted hour. So sorry about that for anyone that's got to run. Feel free to jump off, but we usually do extended Q&A at the end for anybody who's interested enough to keep on with that. Um, Probably we could even do a better job to say, hey, it might run over an hour. So letting people know what to expect is probably good, more than just sticking to tradition. I think webinars, we had a client that wanted to do webinars that, what did Dave say, John, like 8 minutes or something? Like, that's not really a webinar.
Yeah, that
you
would be a
know
little
i
short. Yeah.
I suppose you could, but generally webinars, 20 minutes to an hour is maybe typical, something along those lines. Usually I'm on them that are half hour plus. So a 4 hour one though, who's to say that isn't like Mecca, and all of a sudden, you get 1,000 people on it because people like, heck, I sign up for webinars all the time and don't do them, but this 4 hour one, I'm gonna book my whole half a day off and actually make the space for it. So breaking the rules can work. But
Especially if you're
yep,
trying to like get, if you're going to ask somebody to commit to 4 hours for law stuff, try to include CLE. If you're trying to get in-house counsel or other professionals, if they're going to commit that much time, they need to get something out of it too.
yep. And I think, podcast length is another interesting one. It really depends on your goal. I don't think there's a hard and fast. I listen to some varied podcasts of different lengths, and sometimes I don't mind if someone has a 15-minute podcast. That's great. I might actually listen to it more. And other times I say, okay, I know that maybe search metrics or something, maybe, for example, their webinars are an hour, and I want every last minute of them. But like we do podcasts sometimes for customers where it's not as much about the show as it is getting content on the website, on the blog, from attorneys where we can get them talking, and they might not even be on a regular basis doing it. We might do 6 at one time. So you can break the rules and do it for different reasons. You can do shorter podcasts on a regular basis with the transcripts to get lots of content on your site. Or if you have a specific goal to really build a popular podcast, you're going to need it to be, probably a similar length, and definitely, like say at a similar time or the same time every week, like a TV show, and then really have a process to promote it. And blog posts used to be 300 to 500 words when we first started blogging, when the blogs first came out. And then 500 words was like the standard SEO thing to do, like once a week, 500-word blog post. And then that became ridiculous because everybody did it. And now it's kind of ridiculous in another way, like, oh, you got to write these 2,000-word articles to get serious SEO. So again, Google's now saying maybe we need to look beyond that and look at the relevance more than just the amount of keywords, the length of it. So always just keep on your toes, because whatever you think is the right length or the right way of doing something, it's probably going to change, because when everyone gets a hold of what the right way is, they kind of overdo it. And then Google goes and figures out how to, scale ahead of that and provide good results despite that. Anyway, so
Right.
next
Yeah,
question,
final
John.
question. What do you think about newsletters, and maybe email marketing is kind of rolled into that as well?
Yeah, and I can let Jennifer talk a little on that, but one of the
Yeah.
a very inexpensive form of marketing is email marketing, right? And so a lot of people say, well, I don't have any email addresses, or I don't have a lot of email addresses. And then you look, and 17% of this audience is using ebooks. Well, if you have ebooks and downloadable checklists on like something about family law, or you know, um, immigration or whatever it is, if you've got short ebooks, long ebooks, checklists, things that people can give you their email address and and have to give you their email address in order to get, you're going to be able to do more email marketing, which is almost free. And then with marketing automation, which is sort of email on steroids, after they download an ebook, then you can trigger a series of emails like every few days, like you might also like this related ebook or this related podcast, or do you want to have a free consultation? So having good content on your blog and on a regular basis enables you to not only do the traditional email newsletter, but you can do simple things like content updates where you say, here's the last 3 blog posts that we wrote, and you can do that once a month to your email subscribers, and just put the first few sentences and a picture with the first, your favorite 3 or whatever number of blog posts you created that month, and just share it. Just so, again, you're more of a thought leader if you're keeping up with email marketing and keeping in communication with people. I know we can do a better job with that even. But Jennifer, what do you guys do with that?
People are absolutely obsessed with our newsletters, which my team is always amazed by. And we simply do a lot of what John just said. First of all, you don't want to oversaturate your list, but we do a lot of roundups all the time. I mean, people will sign up to receive information on healthcare law, and we do kind of a compilation of firms who have submitted different topics on it. And they're very, very well read. I think we have like a 18 to 25% open rate. It's kind of crazy. And they're very, very well received. And it kind of is a situation that grows on itself because once they find useful information on healthcare law, if they also have HR needs, then they'll sign up for a labor and employment newsletter. It's a great way to stay in front of potential clients. And as I always say, you want to meet your client where they're at. So if they find you in search, great. If they find you in social media, great. If they find you on the National Law Review, it's the same thing you have on your website, but a little bit different, great. If they find you in a newsletter, great. It's just catching them where they're at.
Fantastic. Any other thoughts, John, or questions? Or
No, that's the last of the questions. Lillian just said,
fantastic.
hey, this has got to be one of the best law firm marketing webinars I've ever attended. Thank you. So she's looking forward to the next 2, and we appreciate that. We'll get those links out to register for the next 2 parts.
All right. Well, thank
Fantastic.
you.
Thank you,
All
everyone,
right.
for coming.
Well, thank you,
Take
John
care.
and Jennifer, and thanks to everyone for attending today's webinar. Again, parts 2 and 3 of this 3-part series, SEO Action Plan for 2021 and how to use essential tools. That's part 2. It's coming on December 9th, so mark your calendars. And part 3 is how to start a successful podcast and optimize your YouTube channel. So a lot of these questions were about podcasts and videos, and we can go into more of that in detail on that one. That's coming on January 13th. Once you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation, and would appreciate it if you complete that and provide your feedback to us. That helps make the next podcast even better. And you'll also receive a follow-up email within a day or 2 with a link to view a recording of today's webinar, as well as a PDF of the slide deck. And on behalf of McDougall Interactive and the National Law Review and our presenters, thanks for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.